Hello YouTube, welcome back to my channel. My name is Caitlin. I am a 25-year-old business owner. Today I'm going to be doing a Q&A on the Boston Marathon that I ran last Monday. I put up a question box on Instagram about my 2024 Boston Marathon experience, and today I'm going to be answering some of those questions. I ran the Boston Marathon in 2 hours 56 minutes. It was a Boston PR, not an overall marathon PR. Let's get right into it. Looking back, if you could do one thing differently, what would it be? Definitely train hills more. I live in Florida, which obviously makes hill training extremely hard. The area that I'm in, it's hard to get even more than 100 feet of elevation gain just on a run. I had to resort to running over bridges across the highway, which definitely helped, but it didn't help enough for Boston. The hills are really what wrecked me. Obviously, the weather on race day was not ideal. It got up to 70 degrees. When you're racing, that's just too hot. It's too hot to be able to run, you know, as fast as I needed to run. I would have really utilized my Nordic Track treadmill. I think I got a little bit complacent with cross training as well. My mileage was just getting really high and I was just more focused on getting the miles done. But I do think that incorporating more bike and elliptical would have definitely helped me more with the hills as well. But at the same time, I think I have to be aware of the fact that it was just a really rough day to race in general. I truly do believe that if it was any other day, I could have hit my time goal, even in Boston, even with the hills. My time goal for this race was to go sub 250. So many runners suffered out there. I wasn't the only one. I think it's important to understand the day that you're given, and you know, you can only do the best on that day, and that's exactly what I did. But I definitely think if I could change one thing, it would be hill training. How was your appetite in the hours and days after? I definitely craved a ton of carbs, which I just ate. I was definitely eating like lots of baked goods, scones, waffles, pastries. Obviously, I put myself through a very physically demanding race. What did you fuel with during the race? During this race, I fueled with the BPN Go Gels. And then I actually stopped at almost every single water stop, which was every 2 miles. I was not expecting to have to stop that much, but it was just really getting hot out there. There were no clouds and I could just feel myself getting more thirsty. So I really tried to keep up with hydration. I executed my fueling strategy and my hydration strategy really well. So when is the race fit being released? Okay, this question got asked a ton. The outfit that I raced Boston in is a brand new collection coming from Expntl Athletics. It will be released in early to mid-May. That set was just one of 5 colorways launching for that collection. It's our best collection yet. That is how I was able to run with my gels and my phone. I ran with my phone because I always listen to music when I race. So I was able to put my phone in the sports bra. The gels were in the hidden pockets that come with the shorts. It was just a full fit. Honestly felt like a little badass runner in my pink set. It was everything that I needed and more. So lightweight, you just feel so fast in it. So more information coming on the launch very soon, I promise. Stay tuned on the Expntl Athletics IG page. What metrics do you have on your watch face while racing? I have the Pace 3 from COROS, and I absolutely love this watch. I raced California in this watch. I raced Boston in this watch. I trained through this entire prep with this watch. I like it just because it's very lightweight and it gives you so much data within the COROS app. In terms of my actual watch face on race day, it's no different than what it normally is. I have several different metrics on my watch whenever I run, but I had the mileage right at the top. Then on the left-hand corner, I have my pace, just so I could see exactly what my pace was. I was also wearing the Pod 2, which is just a more accurate way of tracking your pace. My pace was very accurate because I was wearing the Pod 2. You could just look down and check and make sure that I was on pace. And then on the right-hand corner, I have my heart rate, and then on the very bottom, I have the elapsed time. I really don't ever look at heart rate while I'm racing. I'm more concerned about what my pace is. My heart rate is high. I really don't care, like I'm racing. Going off that question, there was another one about my watch. What training metrics did you focus on the most during your prep? These were all available to me on my COROS app. Every COROS user has access to all of this data within the COROS Training Hub. One of my favorite metrics to look at is my base fitness. Base fitness essentially looks at your training load. You essentially want to get as high as you can before you start your taper. And I will actually attach a little picture of my base fitness and what that looks like within the COROS app. Obviously you want to make sure that, you know, your training is paying off and what you're doing is building on top of each week. You know, you don't want to stay stagnant, and you want to steadily increase your mileage, increase your load impact, so that your body is able to take on such a demanding task. Heart rate data is always great to look at, just to kind of see, you know, how your heart rate is looking on your easy runs versus your speed work. Also, I love to look at my sleep data and just my stress to make sure that I'm getting enough sleep and my body is recovering. Overall, you get so much data within the COROS app, and it really just does make marathon training seamless. Being able to program all of my workouts within the app, check my progress, ensure that I'm progressing the way that I want to progress. How do you keep from feeling mundane while training? Sometimes it feels like a chore. I mean, at the end of the day, I have big goals that I want to hit. I was obviously going for sub 250 at Boston, and you know, I think when you love what you do, of course there's going to be days that I'm not motivated. No one rolls out of bed every single morning just so excited to run, and I definitely have days where I'm not motivated, but at the end of the day, I know that if I don't get the work done, I'm not going to progress, and I never want to do that. I love the process of training. I love the process of watching my body adapt and get stronger. I love marathon training. You can't obviously just rely on motivation. You have to rely on your discipline, and you have to look at the big picture too. You know, you're stacking bricks every single day. For me, that's always worth it. What's your favorite marathon you ran? Honestly, Boston. Boston is my favorite marathon that I ran. It was last year, I think, was my favorite Boston. 2023, that was the year that I broke 3 hours. I ran 2:59:56, so I just broke 3 hours. That race mentally changed me a lot. I realized how much more capable I was of bigger things, and going sub 3 hours was just, it seemed like something only the elites did. And when I did that, I just realized, like, wow, I could really do something here. That race is just so memorable because of that. The mental shift that I had after running that race, it was an out-of-body experience. Since then, I've ran California. I ran that in 2:53. Even though that was, you know, a PR race, it was a better race, I still think that Boston 2023, it just really sticks out. And that mindset shift went beyond running. It even changed the way that I view my career, I view my company, I view what I value in life and what makes me happy. It was an amazing race. I'll never forget it. What are your key tips for injury prevention? I think my biggest tip would be to strength train. Something that I have always incorporated. I will never just run. I will always run and lift. It has really changed everything for me. And I think also, you know, being aware of your training conditions. I immediately felt the difference when I moved to Florida, just because the terrain here is so flat. I really had to focus on specific exercises with my lifts to ensure that I was working all my muscles. Can you tell us about the decision to eat meat again? I got this question a lot. I mentioned it in my last YouTube video that I'm going to start incorporating meat back into my diet. I originally cut meat out just because I'm not a huge fan of the meat industry. I think that meat that you buy in the stores are pumped full of hormones. I want to add meat back into my diet more so because of my life now. I travel so much, and it can be really hard when I'm on the road. I just can't even really eat a balanced meal while I'm traveling because it's so hard to find vegetarian protein sources. It just allows me to have a little more flexibility with my diet. I never want to have a diet that's super constrictive. Meat will never be something that I probably eat every single day. It's more just going to be something that I enjoy when I go out, when I'm traveling. Is there anything you would have changed during the marathon? During, no. I was just going for it. I really don't think that I started too fast. I started right on pace. I wouldn't say that I was expecting it to be as hot as it got. You know, I honestly think that I ran a pretty smart race given the conditions of the day. Hills were brutal, but I ran them as well as I could, and then I tried to recover after the hills and just finish out strong. So I wouldn't necessarily change anything about my race plan. Did you listen to music the whole race? Yes. For every single race, I always create a race day playlist, no longer than it needs to be based on my goal time. But yeah, I listened to music the entire time for Boston. What's next? Okay, so my next race, the only race that I currently have on the schedule, is the Boulderthon Half Marathon. That will be in Boulder, Colorado. I did that same race last year and absolutely loved it, so I'll be back this year. I actually have a discount code for the race as well. It is CAITLYN20. It will save you $20 on the half or full marathon. In terms of a marathon, I'm still looking at my options right now. I think I know what race I'm doing, but not quite solidified yet. How are you feeling after the run? I'm feeling very good. I'm now 10 days post-marathon. I actually did my first run yesterday, slowly getting back into the swing of things. I am just following my coach's post-race protocol, and we are excited to tackle what is next. My coach is Jeff Cunningham. He coached me through this entire Boston prep. He was amazing, and we'll be entering my next marathon prep together as well. Post-race, it's just been a lot of biking, active recovery, foam rolling, kind of letting my body rest a bit before we slowly start to build up mileage again. I will go into more of like a speed phase because I won't be doing a marathon for a while. Does it freak you out to train in the public eye? Is that a lot of pressure? I mean, it's only pressure if you let it be pressure. When you train in the public eye, it is what it is. I'm choosing to do it. At the end of the day, I'm running for myself, and I think that's what's most important. I love sharing my training journey, and I hope to inspire other people, but I think sometimes it can, get to your head a little bit. I just try to not treat it as pressure and more as motivation. Tips for fueling your body. You have to understand that when you're training for a marathon or any race really, you're obviously putting your body through a lot. I always say if you want to train hard, you got to fuel hard. I think for me, I always perform best when I'm on a pretty high carb diet, which is what I stick to. And then obviously I try to get around 1 gram per pound of body weight of protein per day. I never restrict myself. If I'm hungry, I'm gonna eat. I obviously have some days where I just feel more hungry and I snack more, and it is what it is. I don't track my calories at all. I really just eat intuitively. That has worked really well for me. Could you give more details on your pre-race meal planning, day before and morning of? I posted basically my meal breakdown in my Boston Marathon YouTube, but just to kind of summarize everything, I keep my meals very high carb in the days leading up to Boston. I really just try to keep all my food very simple. Foods that I know sit well with my stomach, nothing that's too high in fiber. I try to cut out a lot of the vegetables that I know kind of irritate my stomach a bit, just so that on race day, there's no issues or surprises. Kind of boring, it's just really high carb foods. I actually lower my protein. What's your favorite town/section along the Boston Marathon route? I really just love the final stretch. Dying, it's the very end of the race, but you really just don't forget it. It's hard to forget. That last right-hand turn on Hereford and then the left-hand turn onto Boylston is just, it's unreal. As soon as you turn, you can see the finish line, but it's actually pretty far away. So you don't want to kick too early. The crowd support is just unreal. I get chills every single time. I even got chills this year when it was really freaking hot. We're finishing out one of the most iconic races, and it's really, really cool. So I think that's probably my favorite part. Advice for someone trying to get a qualifying time. I could not recommend getting a coach more, especially if you just kind of feel like you're stuck or you don't really know what sort of speed workouts to program, how to slowly increase your mileage. There's kind of a general formula for marathon training, and I think getting a coach can really just be such a game changer. Keep you accountable, but they also push you, past what you're comfortable with. And I immediately noticed that with Jeff. Before Jeff, I had always coached myself through all my marathon preps. I will say with his speed workouts, his long run workouts, I did workouts that I had never done before and workouts that I never thought I would do. That's where you get better. At first, I was very much like, I can't even do those workouts. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. You're crazy. I can't do that. I've never done that. I really had a lot of mental shifts with this prep in terms of how many miles I was running weekly the workouts that I was doing were just insane. That mental shift just from completing that was huge for me, and I think I needed that push. I'm so thankful for Jeff, and I really would recommend getting a coach. Did your period start in the end? So I posted a video saying that I was supposed to get my period the day of Boston, which I got my period the day of Boston last year as well. I did not end up getting my period the day of Boston. I got it the day after. To be honest, I almost wish I got it the day of Boston, because I always feel the most fatigued in the days leading up to my period. So I almost would have preferred to have been on it, because I feel like my energy would have been back a bit more. It is what it is, but yeah, so I got my period the day after Boston this year. Congrats, hardest marathon you've done because of the weather, training, mental. This definitely was the hardest marathon I've done. Mentally, it was the hardest marathon I've done, and weather-wise, it was definitely the hardest marathon. I really did not expect it to be that hard. It really wasn't the course. Like, I've done Boston before. I really do think that the weather affected me a lot. It was just a rough day to run a marathon. The sun was out too. There was not a cloud in the sky. And that course, you're basically in the sun the whole time. There's little to no shade. The only shade you really get is when you finally enter the city at the end. And there's a couple of buildings like blocking off the sun. We were just cooking. We were cooking in the sun for 26 miles. Disappointing, because I don't feel like that race showed what my fitness was at. I truly believe that going into this race, I was in the best shape of my life. And obviously I didn't run a PR. I think it just goes to show how brutal of a day it was. And I really do believe that on a different day, that race could have looked completely different for a lot of runners. Training all comes down to one day, and there's only so much that you can control. At the end of the day, I'm so happy with my finish time given how the day played out. Was my guess of 6:32 your target pace? Congrats on a solid run regardless. My goal was sub 250, which comes out to a 6:28 average mile pace. So you were close. How was Heartbreak Hill? Heartbreak Hill broke my heart. It was terrible. When you knew you wouldn't get 250, what was your goal? I think I would say by the halfway point, I knew that my goal time was just out of the picture. I didn't set a new goal time. You know, when this is all happening, you're in the midst of a race. I wasn't necessarily like doing math and thinking of new numbers. I was honestly just trying to finish strong. I was just trying to get through the race. At mile 21, I actually keeled over to the side for a second, and I honestly thought that I wouldn't finish. I got super tingly in my hands. I felt very lightheaded. Towards the end of the race, it really just came down to finishing. Still finished with a Boston PR, but in my head, it was more just that I wanted to finish. I wanted to finish for the people who were screaming at me, the people who have just supported me this whole time. My parents were at the finish line. Jeff was at the finish line. I wanted to finish it for the incredible companies who have supported me through this prep, Nordic Track and COROS. I really just didn't have a goal, you know, in mind after I knew I wouldn't hit sub 250. I was just trying to maintain my pace, run as hard as I could, and that's what I did. And I walked out with a 256, which, you know, for me was a huge win considering how much of a physical and mental battle that race was. What happened during / after the physician caught you? That looked scary. Hope you're okay. When he came up to me, I think I just like stumbled a bit. But when he came up to me, he kind of almost like pushed me over a little bit. I was fine though. I recovered. I just was totally out of it and I was dead. It was super helpful. He walked me to go get water. And that's when I actually saw Jeff, and then he let me go and I went over and talked to Jeff. I felt terrible, so I'm going to end the video there. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully I answered most of your questions. I will 110% be back because it's one of my favorite races ever. I will see you on the next video.